I am here with my good friend Adriana from ServiceNow. She is the staff senior staff
Senior
principal.
staff
Anyway,
developer
she's been
advocate.
a developer advocate for a long time, and she's super smart. That's the only thing that
All
really.
right.
The rest of
Yeah.
the thing is not that relevant. Um, and yeah, I want to welcome Adriana here today for our interview about OpenTelemetry and the community. And let's kick it off with an easy one. Well, easy one. Could you share some details about your career so far, what you've done so far, and what your role is in the OpenTelemetry community?
Cool. Yeah. So my career started out in software engineering. I did Java development for 16 years. I don't know. I don't know how I did it for that long. And then I got into DevOps. I was working at a bank at the time, and I ran their DevOps program there. Had to roll out DevOps to an entire organization, convinced them that DevOps was a cool and awesome thing, in spite of the fact that everyone was like, oh my God, another transformation, so over it. And then after that, I took a step back in my career away from management and into, I joined a release engineering team where I leveled up my Kubernetes skills. And then I ended up getting hired as my next job, running an observability team and a platform engineering team at Two Cows, where I knew next to nothing about observability and next to nothing about the what they were using on the platform engineering team, which was HashiCorp Nomad. So I had to learn about that stuff to be able to lead those teams in that. So that's how I got into observability. Was, well, I guess I better learn. I'm leading a team. So I started like learning about it, blogging about it, being obnoxious and asking a lot of questions in certain Slack communities. And now here I am, caught the eye of the manager who hired me into Lightstep, which is now ServiceNow Cloud Observability, and where he's like, hey, how would you like to do this for a living? Because I was like blogging about my experiences, and I'm like, giddy up. Yes, sounds awesome. Yeah, it was very eventful.
Now, I'm going to do the most terrible segue ever
Okay.
because Adriana has been an advocate of trace tests since the very beginning. And I think it's just natural to obviously do a terrible segue and ask, so where and how in heavens did you hear about trace test? What were you doing when that initial love happened?
Well, what a great question. So I learned about trace test, and this was shortly after I joined ServiceNow, where we were chatting like in our team chat, and Ted Young, who is one of the co-founders of OpenTelemetry, posted about you guys saying, hey, look, there's a company that's doing trace-based testing. And he had done a talk at one of the KubeCons, I can't remember what year, where he was talking about trace-based testing. And I'm like, oh, this looks kind of cool. So I decide for funsies to like, okay, I'm going to look at this tool, but rather than install it on Kubernetes, I'm like, I'm going to install it on HashiCorp Nomad. And as you may recall, I worked on a team where I had to learn HashiCorp Nomad. So I'm like, hey, why not? And so I started posting on your Discord. And I'm sure Ken looked at me like, who the hell is this weird person who is using trace tests on Nomad? Like, sorry, man, we can't help you there. You're on your own kind of thing. Like, no, I actually, Ken was like very helpful and answered some questions for me to understand like how trace tests worked and whatnot. So I was able to like spin it up on Nomad. So that was my first foray into trace tests. And I'm like, this thing is so cool because like I'm a huge fan of traces. And so to, like, hey, if you're instrumenting your application using traces, let's take advantage. Like it's already there. So yeah.
This was not scripted.
It was.
Honest answer. I love it. Now, Adriana you've been part of the OpenTelemetry community for a long, long time.
Not that long. Like 2 years.
Okay. In open telemetry time, 2 years is a lot. And I think I personally want to know what your favorite contribution to the open telemetry project is.
So, to answer your question, I'm going to tell you, like, I started contributing to open telemetry on the doc side because it was probably the easiest area where I could be helpful, and not, like, panic completely. So as I got more confident, then I started, like, dipping in other areas. But I would say my favorite contribution to open telemetry has got to be a recent one that I did, because I just did a talk yesterday at KubeCon on basically how Prometheus and open telemetry are like besties. And there's this component of open telemetry called the open telemetry operator, which it has another component called the target allocator, which is used to, like, it helps you with some Prometheus things. It even distribution of Prometheus targets, and also, like, it does service discovery of Prometheus custom resources. And so I was, like, researching for this talk, as you do. You submit a CFP for a talk, and you're like, oh well, I guess I better learn about this thing. So in 2 weeks, Reese and I put the talk together, and I already had some inkling of what was going on, so it wasn't like like brand new. But so as part of the talk, like, we put together a blog post as well, and I realized, and a demo, and I realized as I'm putting this demo together, there's certain things in the documentation, the README for the target allocator, that aren't super clear. And so I was like, I was posting a question on the OTel operator Slack, and someone's like, oh yeah, our README is not super clear. I need to fix that. I'm like, what's the ticket number? I'll do it for you. So I did that, and I'm super stoked about that, because I think making sure that the docs in open source are, like, as clear as possible is so important. Like, I love being able to share my learnings and findings in open source through blog posts. It's awesome. But I also think, like, it's our duty as, like, community members to, you notice something isn't great with the docs, rather than say, oh, that's a piece of crap. Like, let's contribute back. So that's why it's my favorite contribution. But my main role in open telemetry is I work in the OTel end user working group. So I'm one of the leads there.
And that's actually something that I think is really cool to touch on as well, specifically the open telemetry end user working group. I think, what would be your description of, what do you think is the best description actually of what the end user working group does? Just give us a brief intro on that and tell our viewers what it's all about.
Yeah, so the OTel end user working group, we basically work with end users to we connect end users with each other, but we also share end user feedback to the community. And we do that through various different activities. Like last year, we would run OTel Q&A. So we'd get an end user to come in, and we'd just do an interview style thing with them to just learn how they used open telemetry in their organization. And we've been posting these interviews on the OTel YouTube channel, which is the channel is OTel-official if you want to check it out. We also do OTel in practice, which is basically like a meetup style thing, where you want to present some cool topic in open telemetry, contact us. And basically we just do like a live, like, Zoom meeting where you can present on whatever topic. And then again, we post the videos on YouTube. So both that and Q&A, we do live, but also post the videos on YouTube. And now we're also, like, really hunkering down on getting the feedback from the OTel community. So for the OTel collector, for example, we worked with the collector maintainers to create a survey to get feedback from the community so that it would help drive the collector roadmap. And then we also had, like, an end user feedback panel for the OTel collector. So we want to be able to do more of that in the coming year. Basically, is just making sure that we are collecting the user feedback, but also disseminating to the right SIGs so that they can action that, so that we don't have the case of, like, oh, OTel's a piece of crap. They're not doing the thing that I needed to do. Well, this is your opportunity to, like, tell us, and then for us to then share that feedback with the community.
That's a wonderful answer. And with that, we're hitting the 10-minute mark. So I want to let Adriana get back to her lovely day here at KubeCon. And thank you so much for joining. And until next time, join us for more interviews. Ciao.